Hello, everybody. Hello, iSpark family. So glad you could be here today and join us on this second webinar entitled Moving Forward Parenting, all presented and sponsored by iSpark, of course, and we're so grateful for this support during this time. I'm Coach Lynn, and for those of you that don't know me, I've been privileged to be a coach with iSpark for many, many years with the Indigenous RunWalk program. So my job today is to simply facilitate what will promise to be a wonderfully engaging presentation and thought-provoking as we all are moving forward in these new times. And I know I can just speak for myself, even just for a moment, in feeling optimistic, because in BC we've done our very, very best to stay strong and to stay healthy and to keep our families close and safe and trying to be active with our health and all these steps that we're taking to combat this pandemic. And yet, so we've done well, and yet now moving forward there are just many challenges. So we're so lucky here to have our expert presenter, wonderful member of our iSpark family. Many of you as leaders were able to hear her speak during our leader training days in the fall. And I'm speaking, of course, about our resident expert clinical psychologist here in Dr. Lisa Gunderson. Dr. G, we've had hello and welcome. It's wonderful to see you again.
So good to see you.
Yes, and for those of you that weren't able to join us for previous webinars, the webinar we had last week was our first of this Moving Forward series, and it was called Our New Future. And those webinars are available, as well as our circle time, our lunchtime circle times that we've had. It's just, I'm so grateful that we have this time together, because sharing our expertise with Lisa, our experiences with Lisa, with Dr. G, and then just being able to come to a sense of peace, I suppose, with where we're headed. So starting us off in the best possible, good, wonderful way, also our wonderful member here in our iSpark family, full of wise words and wisdom, and reaches our hearts every time he speaks. So please welcome to begin this presentation and webinar today is Gerry Oleman.
Oh, I'd just like to acknowledge where I'm at now. I'm in Brandon, Manitoba. And it's a Treaty 2, Treaty 4 area, and it's a home of the Manitoba is homelands of the Cree, Anishinaabe, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Métis people. And, I'm glad to say it's springtime here now, and it's I got shorts on and been wearing my Birkenstocks, and I'm so glad to be here today. And it's a wonderful time for us to get together to look at ourselves. And it's a really important topic today about parenting. The children, I can only imagine what they're going through now. And how it will be when because I remember as a child, some of my memories were all of the men in the community shoveling snow in the dead of winter with homemade shovels. And we'd gather around a fire and have hot chocolate and stuff like that. And it's one of the beautiful memories for me as childhood. But I also seen and heard the addictions life that I could talk about, and some of the, I guess you could say, the horror stories associated with that. So I was thinking about today and the parenting of the children at this time, about teaching them about safety. And I feel that some of the good things that come out from this perhaps is teaching about boundaries, the importance or critical importance of boundaries, of living in harmony in small spaces. And I know we've been there before as Indigenous people before contact. We were living in small spaces in a harmonious way. So I thought I'd start off today's session with a song that I used to sing at times in the hospital for babies when they're born. And it's about the cycle of life. Hey yo, hey yo, oh, hey yo, oh, hey yo, oh, hey I was asking that all the children be alert and take care of themselves, that they be taught to do that. And also for the grandchildren to be alert, to learn how to watch life around them and to take care of themselves. So that's what I was thinking for. So I'd just like to thank you for asking me to be here today, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerry. I was muted. Dr. G, here we go with the agenda. We'll, just so everybody knows, we'll work through this this agenda here with a presentation, and then feel free to please just type away under in the chat zone there, any questions, anything at all that bumps up, because we will definitely leave time to, address these things and discuss afterwards.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again so much for coming out. We really appreciate you joining us for iSpark's second presentation. And we built the agenda based on what people had sent to us. And it appears there are kind of two big categories that came out, and that was toddlers. So we're talking like under 5, and then teens also seem to pop up a lot. So I'm going to start with talking a little bit about toddlers, and then we're going to go into screen time, where I'm going to talk about screen time for both toddlers and teens, because that's the issue that came up with regard to those groups, and then school and making the decision. As you all know, across the province, many schools, daycares, etc., are reopening up on Monday, June 1st. And then I'm going to speak to resiliency. So as Lynn said, we really want to leave time. So I'm going to go through this quite quickly, because I really want to leave time for us to talk about specific issues that you may be seeing within your own families or within community. Does that sound okay, Lynn?
Sounds great. And I just inwardly, when I'm imagining those little rugrats, those little toddlers, and then of course we all have, our households are turned upside down. No matter how old our children are, they are probably around us now. And I can speak to that. There's just a whole lot of things going on inside. So let's get to it.
All right. And I will preface this by saying I have 2 kids. One is 14, grade 8. The other is just turned 18 last Monday, graduating grade 12. So he's part of that 2020 class that doesn't know what's happening. And they are both doing a lot of work. And we'll get more into that later. If everybody can see what you see there,
gorgeous. It just, our hearts go to these young children. These children are futures. And look at this little guy. Oh my goodness.
Media Smarts, and that's one of the links that you're going to be getting an email afterwards. This is one of the organizations, Media Smarts Canada, that I would highly recommend to people to take a look at. They do all the research looking at digital literacy technology across the nation. And they have some incredibly valuable reports, statistics on all categories of kids and how we use technology, how they're using technology, television, gaming, all of that. It is really a wonderful resource that you'll be using for a really long time. In that resource, they had done a poll about a year ago, and they were asking kids, parents, how much they would spend on their devices. And they reported that even kids 0 to 4, like a little over 40% have their own smartphone. And I was like, have their own smartphone or have access to a smartphone? And it says have their own smartphone, right? And it just keeps kind of increasing. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that almost everybody has some sort of phone, tablet, computer that children have access to. Now, depending on your income level, that will make a difference in terms of if your kid is sharing a device or have their own device, how many devices, etc., and your access to things like the internet and so forth. But one of the things that we do know is that kids are spending at least 3 hours a day on average on devices not having anything to do with schoolwork. And that was before COVID. Okay, that was before COVID. So one of the reasons we're showing this slide is one of the questions that came up is the idea that I'm feeling so guilty because the phone is babysitting my toddler. And I have this incredible stress of balancing my kids with work. And unlike some of the older ages, which we'll get to, you've got 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds running around the house. And if you have been around any child that age, you know that to them, waiting for 10 minutes is forever. And so how do I balance that if I'm at work or if I'm trying to do things in the home and I need 2, 3 hours of concentrated time? And so I'm just giving them the device. The device keeps them quiet and I'm good. But now I feel guilty. Okay, so I'm sending you all links to quite a few articles that basically all say the same thing. Yep, that's guilt you're feeling. And you know what? It's okay. And try not to feel guilty. One article, the verdict is not guilty. That's the verdict that's in. On average, you've heard how many professionals talk about how many hours your child should be on a device. All the experts right now are talking about during this time period, we are expecting an increase in that, and that's okay. It's not going to kill your child. Your child is not going to end up not being able to do things in the future because you decide to allow them to have more time on the device than you were normally used to having. Okay. So part of it is understanding that all parents, caregivers are kind of feeling that guilt. And part of figuring this time period out is what works for your family and how that works. That being said, if you have a child, somebody who's on a device, say 15 hours a day, no, that's still not okay, right? Like there is some extremes that are still kind of concerning. So we wanted to give a couple of tips in terms of with regard to the device and then ideas away from the device. So first is that it's not really the device that we're concerned, it's more the quality of what the child is watching, who they're watching or who they're engaging with. That's the second piece that we're interested in. So the first part of what they're watching, if a child is watching 30 minutes of Sesame Street or learning their ABCs. That is a different quality than them doing 30 minutes of playing a shoot 'em up, bang, bang game, right? So it's really important to think about what they're engaging with. And so that time period that they're engaging, we want them to be engaging in things that are going to be interesting to them, things that are not violent, things that, and it could be fun things that make them laugh. It could be cultural activities on there. It could be educational, but fun educational type of items, right? So part of it is what they're engaging in. To help you all with that, another resource that I'm giving you, in addition to the Media Smarts, which has a whole set of resources, is Commonsensemedia.org. And it has a list by age. So you could put like 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, and it will give you apps. It will give you good video choices. It'll give you good movie choices. And it will break down exactly what those look like. So you can see how much violence, how much modeling, how much, stuff in each category that allow you as a parent to make a decision that fits for your household. Okay. So part of that is, figuring out that piece is the quality of what they're doing. The second piece is who they're engaging with. So our main issue here is you want to make sure that they're engaging with either, for example, for our young ones, maybe it's a grandparent, an aunt, a cousin, having those interactions with people that they love and can't be near at this point in time, friends. But just be mindful of any type of stranger. We don't want them engaging with people you don't know. There's a lot of different parental controls you can do to make sure that's happening. So my son is now on Messenger, my 14-year-old, Facebook Messenger. Never been on it before, but all of his friends, that's how they're communicating. So we got him an account, but all his friends have to be approved through a parent. So I, as a parent, know exactly who he's speaking to, what's going on in that conversation. Okay. So that's a piece of that. The third part of with your child is something called co-viewing. And this is an idea that a child uses a screen to talk to their parent about what they're doing. So this is a way for you and your child to spend some time together and talk to each other, and they teach you what they're enjoying. As a child gets older, we switch them into something psychologists call co-engaging. And that's when it simply means that a child is using their screen and they're engaging with somebody else on an equal footing. So it's not like an onlooker, your teen is not explaining what they're doing, but your teen is interacting with another teen and they're doing something together. So they're kind of equally balanced. Mm-hmm. And so they're engaging, interacting with each other. And that's an important piece to this. While people could look at a screen and just be passive, you want to try to make sure your child is not just passively watching all the time, mm-hmm. but doing stuff to kind of engage with whatever device they're using. I'm going to stop there just for a second before I go on with toddlers in a minute.
I was just thinking to myself, this is, as a parent of grown children now, I still struggle with keeping up to the latest in whether it's apps or communication. And so the good thing, as always, one door closes, another one opens. The good thing is that we're going to become more in touch. I know that for sure, if I didn't figure out how to text on my phone a number of years ago, I wouldn't have had the same communication with my, young adults as I do as a result. So this is very helpful.
One of the things that I want to kind of put this all in context. So you have a little one, right? But the adults in the space, you have to give yourself a break. in a period of time like this, all of a sudden, you as a guardian, as a caregiver, you were thrown into not just doing your work and trying to figure out what COVID means to you from an adult space, but now you're supposed to be teacher, daycare provider, chef, cleaner, like everything all at once. And depending on how you set your mind, you're supposed to be 100% present all the time. And as caregivers of children, we're told that, right? Like, you need to be present for your child always. And that's where some of that guilt comes in, that you look over and you realize, dang, I didn't see my kids yesterday for no lie, 12 hours. I saw them in 5-minute intervals in just between meetings. And at the end of the day, I'm like, dang, oh. And so I'm going to talk to that space for a minute, because that does influence what's happening with our kids and how they see us handling this. Zoom is more work. If you have an hour Zoom meeting and it feels like after you came out of that, you were like 3 hours in a normal face-to-face meeting, you're right. It is so much heavier. And part of it is that we have to really like be here. Like right now, if we were in a meeting, maybe I could be off on the side kind of doodling a little bit or interacting, with the person kind of next. We don't have that luxury. And so if you feel more tired because you're on some sort of device all the time or you're busy, that's real. And so part of what all the child psychologists are talking about that's necessary, and for all of us, is setting some sort of routine. Setting a new routine for yourself, some kind of structure, especially for kids and small kids. Because remember, a small 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old, they don't really know what's going on. I mean, they hear this thing about COVID, but they're trying to figure things out. So what are the things that you can put into your schedule that they can expect, that are predictable? And that's going to help lower their anxiety. It's going to help lower their depression. So suggestions include finding a good time to get up, the same time, whatever that may be. It's been adjusted for my kids. Normally they would have gotten up, say, at 7:30. Well, now they're getting up at 10:30. And I'm okay with that because they need sleep. So they're getting that, okay? But they get up at a certain time. They suggest making sure you go through a normal routine of, if it's brushing teeth, then eating breakfast. Try to set a time for lunch. Try to set a time for dinner. If for toddlers, a regular bedtime, trying to maintain that kind of structure is helpful. Now, where flexibility needs to come in, they suggest thinking about having for toddlers a playtime, and for elementary school students, like a kind of a work time, a school kind of time, and then just, a time of family quality time, just kind of breaking it up. And you can adjust those throughout your day, because some days you might be able to do it at 2, and other days it may be 4. But one of the things that's important is for you to recognize for your toddler, and depending, they know that there's certain things happening throughout the day. So now it's drawing time. Okay, so they take their paper and they go draw. Okay. One of the ways that this can work for you as somebody who's working is to consider splitting your workday into different sessions. And that's something that was suggested by a man named Dr. Kruger. So if you think about your day as a morning session, a midday session, and a nighttime session, you may find that versus a regular workday of 9 to 5, if you have that flexibility, you may find that you do better doing some of your work at nighttime when your child is asleep. And so that becomes part of your workday instead. And so you need to think a little bit more, if you have the ability to be more flexible, to think about doing it a little bit differently, if that can work for you. Likewise, if you have somebody else in the household, a grandparent, a partner, and you both have to work and you have a small child, you are going to have to figure out a way to share that. So maybe one person has the child for breakfast and the other person works for an hour, and then we swap. And then the other person has the child for hour 2, and then you're doing your part for hour 2, right? The times that you both need to be on a meeting at the same time, the kid's just kind of sitting there. 2 ways you can handle that. One, have the child potentially help you. So if you are doing something, maybe you can give your papers to your child, some random papers, and say, hey, can you staple these for me? Or can you go and put, a stack of things, can you go stack these for me? Because if you think about it, for many of us, in terms of our ancestors and our heritage, children were a part of the daily life of an adult. They didn't necessarily have their own thing happening. And so they would stand by and watch what adults were doing. So maybe you set up a little small mini desk. And so mommy's working on their thing and they're working on a fake typewriter. Maybe they have those old-fashioned old telephones, not a real phone. Maybe they're doing a little call. Mommy has to draw something. Maybe the child is doing that, right? So you have to just think about your work and if that's possible. The other piece, and Gerry talked about this, is boundaries. Is also talking to the little ones and saying, though, there is a work time where mommy can't be disturbed, right? And what can help for kids sometimes, because they don't understand time, is a timer. So you set a timer for, say, 30 minutes, and you put it over there and go, I need you to play with your dolls till this goes off. And when it goes off, then you can come to me, okay? And if you do this kind of timer thing, you have to honor it. So it's like mommy's going to be able to spend, we'll read a book in 20 minutes. You set a timer for 20 minutes, but when that timer goes off, you had better, whatever, you'd be like, okay, it's time now to read. And then you go read and then you come back. If that makes sense to people, you can't. So if you are not sure, I always hedge my bets. So I tell my kids, if I think I can be done in 30, I tell them 40. and then if I show up early, they're excited. And if I don't, they're not disappointed. Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to mention, and then give a break so we can answer some questions with teens, is give hugs. And what I mean by this is that day I had yesterday, I just took a minute, went to my one kid, I picked him up, I gave him the biggest hug, and I said, I can't tell you how much I miss you right now. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, and a kiss, and then I went back. With a small toddler, just being able for a moment to take that minute, it does have meaning. And do not, in my opinion, believe it's unprofessional if I'm in a Zoom call and my child gets up on my lap, and this is one of the articles, that's fine. And I think it's important for you to tell your colleagues where you're at and to tell your other people that you're dealing with where you're at. I always preface, hey, I've got 2 kids in the house. I'm hoping this is going to go smooth, but if need be, you might see somebody come through. I may have to excuse myself. One woman said yesterday, we were in a Zoom call, she goes, my child comes into every Zoom call. And indeed, halfway through, her child came in, little one sat on her lap and we all went, hi. Sure. Right? So be gracious if that happens. Like if you're seeing that and that's happening for somebody else, be gracious and say, oh, hi, that's great. Because that helps alleviate the guilt that other people are feeling. And for anybody in the call who's like, oh, that's unprofessional, it shows, no, you know what? This is what we're doing. This is how this is. It's okay. And so I think that's okay. If you've got, your little one there, if that's what you need to do that. Okay.
Oh, you make it sound easy. I know. And we all know that. And just for sure, what you did say, you need a break too. And there has to be some form of balance and a give and take. And when you've got those little ones, we all know when we've had them, like all the best laid plans just they run amok. And there are a number of comments here about, I've got 3 jobs, I've got so much going on, and I've got these young toddlers I can't manage. You know, it's so hard to manage their energy. And boy, oh boy, having a couple of boys and girls myself, but I remember those boys at a young age. You know, there are you can engage sometimes different personalities with coloring and drawing and quiet playing, but boys sometimes, and girls too, but man, their energy. So what about that, Dr. G? Like, our kids need to get outside and expend some energy, and you'll find that really helps. When things are crazy, get them moving, you know?
Yes, definitely. And I want to talk, as I can read here, a couple of the things that people are talking about. When it comes to, for example, somebody saying here, I have 2 kids, they're always fighting, they're getting up to mischief. You know, how do we manage that? One is 6, the youngest is 3. First, what I'm going to tell you again is not easy. All right. Second, you're going to be doing a lot of experimenting. Some of the links that I'm sending you have some specific ideas, but you're going to find that some things work for some families that won't work for others. You have to experiment and be willing to do that. You also have to make sure you're not so rigid that you can't be flexible. Okay, so what does that look like? The 6 and the 3-year-old. Is it possible to think of some sort of activity that they can engage in together? Maybe they can get the task of building, I'm just going to give an example, a Lego city. And you put them in a room and you say, here you go, you all figure out how to build this, right? Or a board game. If they're not board game type people, my boys are used to being so athletic. They're both basketball players, but my teen, it's been difficult to get him out of the house because he has anxiety around doing that with COVID. So we have a little mini basketball hoop that they attach to their door. And I hear them, you know, engaging in that activity or passing a ball with one another, right? It, depending on the size of your space, we don't have a backyard. So one of the things we have done is outside of our garage, set up just a little table where I can send them out there. Maybe they read a book, or maybe they sit, we live kind of like in a cul-de-sac, and they toss a ball back and forth to each other. As a family, we try to go for a walk. Now, the young ones, 6 and 3, it is about going online, I think, talking, number one, parents talk to other parents. So talk to other friends of yours who have children that age. What are you doing to keep them occupied? Is there a craft? Is there an activity? Is there a game? My boys do a game online that they do together. So they're able to do that. But for the really young ones, it really is about thinking about different activities that they can engage in together. It's also being realistic. You're not going to be able to have them sit for an hour at a time. The 3-year-old's brain isn't going to really work like that. So you really are thinking about doing things in spurts of time. And this is why one of the reasons psychologists and other people suggest a schedule, because if a child can look and see, oh, I have this, I can go do this for 15 minutes, and then I can go do this for 15 minutes. If those of you have, somebody says they have 3 jobs, their wife has their own practice, how do we manage? And it's hard to find things for kids to do. It is. And if you sit here and try to think and imagine or look at me and go, okay, I need her to give me 10 things for my kids to do, we're not going to be able to do that. That's why you really are going to have to, some of these links I sent, you're really going to have to go kind of online and look at all the different creative ways that people are engaging young kids. So it's putting into the Google, how do I keep my 3, and I would be this specific, how do I keep my 3-year-old occupied? How do I keep my 4-year-old occupied? Because it's going to be different things for different age groups. I know this isn't probably what some people want to hear, because what I'm basically telling you is that you're going to have to do some research. talk to your friends, talk to other colleagues, you know, figure that out, and also employ other people. For the young ones, is there a grandparent, an elder, or somebody who can call in every day from 10:30 to 11? And so, hey, grandpa's calling, hey, auntie's calling, hey, cousin's calling. That will occupy a 3-year-old for about half an hour or maybe 15 minutes, right? So maybe building that is something that you all can actually work together with. So you kind of tag team with your friend. You call them and then have them call me, and you build that into your time. The other thing I'm going to tell you, which people aren't going to necessarily like, is you may have to figure out, you can't do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it is going to be having to see, if possible, calling work and saying, look, I need an hour. I need to come in an hour later or leave an hour earlier, or I'm going to have to take a break in the middle of the day. And I know that some people are like, my work would never go for it, but it is COVID. And you might be surprised at how flexible some people might be able to be, honestly. And that may be something you can do, because it's not possible. I know that, so these are the 2 sites that have a lot of ideas. And again, for all 8, from 1, like 0, 1, all the way through to 18. And you will be getting this after this call. I know that's not probably what people kind of want to hear, but I will tell you that the main categories, sleep, right? You still got to make sure your kids are getting sleep. Some sort of engagement of the brain. So whether that's schoolwork for the teens, or whether that's, you know, some activity for the young ones. IXL, if you all aren't familiar with IXL has activities for young kids all the way through to 18, and it is aligned with the BC curriculum. So that is something that, and it's fun. It's like these games and competitions online, and that's fun as well. Social and family connections are really important. So peer-to-peer support and physical activity. And the other thing I didn't mention, chores. Each kid every day should be doing chores no matter what age they are.
Mm-hmm.
Have them help you empty the dishwasher, have them help you sweep, have them help you garden,
They love
mopping, brooms, dusting. Give a 3-year-old a little piece and a 6-year-old and have them do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kids that like to compete, we'll have them compete. Who can make their bed fastest? That's how I get my kids to do the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
You have 5 minutes, you both go for the dishwasher, see if you can beat the timer. My kids yesterday did it in 4, and then they high-fived each other. They're like, yeah, right? Another question before we get into the worry and stress of school. Okay. Somebody mentioned I do want to mention about teens. Teens are a little bit more challenging. And the reason for that is they're already online so much. Most of their schools now are all online as well. So they look like they could be on a device. It feels like 20 hours a day. Here's where it becomes really important, as much as possible, again, to figure out some sort of schedule for them, mm-hmm. where they are setting aside time to do schoolwork. And that is separate from the time where they may be hanging out with their friends. And part of that for you is to make sure that they're not spending like 8-10 hours a day gaming, right? The number one thing, and we're seeing again in the research, teens who have a device in their room are waking up after they go to bed and they're getting back on the devices, or the devices are waking them up. I cannot implore you all to please don't have the devices in their room. And this is something everybody can do. The whole family can put their devices in a basket. We plug all of our devices outside of our bedrooms. It is one of the single quickest things that you can do to help your child get better sleep, which is going to help them be less anxious, less depressed, more likely to be active. Second, for teens, it's really important to somehow try to figure out how to get them exercise. Like I said, I'm struggling with my son who's not going out, but he'll do push-ups inside. Great. So he'll sit and he'll do some push-ups. He'll do some other things. And then we're getting him outside now. And then we're just doing a competition. I bet you your mom can beat you going down the street. You can't beat me. We start running. I cannot beat him, but it gets him going. Part of that needs to be exercise for them in some fashion, running up and down the stairs if you have them, running around in circles if that's the case. It's a really important thing. The other thing with teens that we want to be careful of is they can get a lot of information about COVID, and it can be so much an overload that it can make people get depressed. So has somebody said, you want to get enough information to be able to understand what's going on, but you don't want so much that you're getting paranoid. So it becomes really important for the teens, especially, to try to have some sort of structure. The way you can help with that, set times for meals where you expect them to come with no devices. If you can, set a family time where I don't care where everybody's at, we're getting together at 9 o'clock and just checking in with one another. That becomes really important for them as well. They can express themselves, and if they're not doing it with their words, you can have a conversation with them about maybe just, how are you doing? I would just check in every now and then. How's it going for you, right? And if you notice that their food is going down, they're not eating as much, they're sleeping too much, not sleeping enough, don't forget to, and you're getting really concerned, there's a lot of resources out there to help that they can access themselves to be able to help with that if you're worried about their mental wellness. Okay. Whether or not to return your child to school is something you all are going to have to decide individually as a family. I think one of the mistakes that's happened with school and daycares is they started asking us all if we wanted our kids to come back without giving us very specific information on what that was going to look like. And I think that was poor planning in many ways. They asked that first. You need to look at the protocols for your specific school, your daycare, and decide for yourself and for your family if you feel that that's okay. Many people are like, it would be great because then I can do my work, but am I adding more stress to myself because I'm worried now about my child? We know that the percentage of children getting COVID is small. We also know that children who do get it are 99% likely going to be fine. It seems the real worry that parents tend to have is less about that than the child bringing something home to people who may be more vulnerable in the home, to possible elders in the home, to other kids in the home. And so that seems to be more of a concern. For the young ones, you as the parent are going to really have to decide that. For kids that are a bit older, you still have to decide, but you can ask their input. We asked our children if they wanted to go back. They were not interested for a variety of reasons. And so we honored that, and we're going to keep them home. It's important to realize as well that as it gets nicer outside, parents will be inclined to be like, let's go outside. We can go outside now. Da, da, da. The kids need to get out. You may have from toddlers, 3-4 years old, to older kids going, I don't want to go outside. A parent told me about a 4-year-old where they opened the window and a gust of wind came in and the kid was like, shut the window, COVID's coming through. So part of what you need to do is make sure what you're taught, that your child's understanding of COVID is something that makes sense to them. And you don't want to don't over-explain. There's also some links of how to talk to your kid about COVID. Some of you are going to have to recondition your child about COVID. They've heard so much misinformation, like it's going to come through the window and do that. For that parent, I would say, oh, tell your child, no, no, dear, it can't come that way. I know that seems scary, but no, that's not the case. You may find that your child becomes more defiant, has more temper tantrums, gets more upset and more angry easily when it's time to go out. And for some parents, like, what do you mean? You've been stuck inside. What? From their perspective, if they believe COVID is just catchable anywhere, that's what's happening. And so in cases like that, you're really going to need to sit with them and then explain and then ease them into going out. Be careful of trying to throw the child outside. And so maybe we just go out for 1 minute. You set your timer, you go out for 1 minute, then you come back. And then the next day, maybe it's 5 minutes and you go back. So I want parents to kind of be mindful of where their toddlers may be at, if there's resistance that they may be feeling. Same thing with parents. I see, are there any strategies to catch your kid off devices rather than cold turkey? Here's the thing when it comes to the devices, depending on how old your kids are, make a plan for all your kids. Let's have a plan and let's talk about, and depending on their age, let's negotiate how long you should be on your device. And remember what I said earlier, there is something about time on a device, but it's also what are they doing on the device, right? So your kid could be on a device for 5 hours, but they're listening to music for 3 hours, they're reading a book, and then they're watching a video, right? That's different than 5 hours gaming, okay? So part of that is negotiating with your kid that you can't do anything for a ton of hours in a day. That's just not healthy. So I think part of it is how you couch it, not being the evil parent who's taking away the device, right? Mm-hmm. But every part of our life requires balance. Mm-hmm. And so our devices require balance. And so you need to ask them, what do you think is fair? Now we talked about 4 hours. Now, what about 2? And so we negotiate to maybe 3. And then we're going to honor that. And that's a boundary, and that's honoring your word. So now it's not about the device. It's about we've made a deal, and we're going to honor that. And if you don't do that, here are the consequences. And you all negotiate what those consequences are. And maybe the consequence is you don't get your device the next day. Maybe you only get it for half the time. Maybe you have to do an extra chore or whatever it is. But as much as you all can do this together, and so it's not like the parent coming down, as much as you can do this together and explain to your child why. For your health, for your physical health, for your mental health, it's important that we're not always on this. And so if you all can sit together and make that plan, make sure that it's renegotiable, because you may say, oh, this is okay, and then realize, ooh, that wasn't a good idea. And then you can model, you know, I'm your mom, but I made a mistake. I honestly thought that was going to be okay. I'll let it go today, but starting tomorrow, we're going to have to do something differently. Mm-hmm. All that being said, you may have to I've had to just take my kid's phone. I said, you know what? Because they sleep. And when they go to sleep, it's like, I take the phone and I said, you know what? I'm sorry. That was too much yesterday. And you're going to just have to be without it today. Are they upset with me? Absolutely. Are they mad? Absolutely. And I tell them, you're going to be mad and upset with me. You know, I still love you, but that's okay. So sit down, have a conversation. You can do that at any age. Make a plan that everybody sticks to, have the consequences, and follow through. And you have to model the same behavior. So you can't ask your kids to be off their devices. Make sure you're off your device. Are you off of your device? Okay. You have to model that behavior. They are looking to you for that. They're looking to you about how you do COVID. They are looking, you know, if you can say, yeah, I'm uncertain too, and I feel scared too, but we're doing these things and we're going to get through it okay. It becomes really important. I know I see our time, and I want to just mention this really quickly about school and daycares. I would like to ask everybody to advocate for their children, no matter what age they are, for the new school future. I'm not talking about this month or for daycare that goes year round, but we need to start engaging with our schools to make sure our children are getting and building on their resiliency skills. So what that means is, as schools start to go, we need to make sure schools are making clear how kids can get support if we end up back in this online world again. I truly believe we're going to be in a hybrid situation in September. Your kids will be spending half their time probably at home, I think, and half at school. And if we have a second wave, they'll be back in your house again. So we need to figure out how to seek support, not just for them, but for yourselves. For those of you who are doing all this juggling, you might be thinking about it in short term, but I'm asking you to be preventive. You need to be thinking about your work and how you would sustain this, if need be, again in the fall. So it becomes important for you not to think about this just in short term, but start thinking about kind of long-term ways of this happening. Ask your schools to make sure they're doing something around social emotional curriculum. What are they going to be giving to the kids? At the tribal school I'm at, we're starting our kindness club online again for the school on Friday, where any kid can come in. Wellness clubs for kids. We do a siblings group. What is the peer-to-peer support going to be? So talk to your parent groups. Some of our parent groups are still meeting. Write a note to your principals, to your, vice principals, to your school boards, your trustees. For those of you in tribal schools, have them begin to think about how are they going to help support as we go into the future. Do you have training? I've been answering some. I'd like to answer one that I see here. As much as we would love to get our kids back to school, how can we trust the schools will know how to deal with a 3-year-old child? And are the teachers getting training on how to deal with kids? And are they ready to go back to school now, or should we wait till September? Okay, I'm going to tell you my bias. And I'm going to preface it by saying every school is doing things differently. And that's kind of, for me, crazy making. I have kids in 2 different districts and they're doing it in 2 different ways. From what I've heard from various teachers around, they are just as concerned as you all in many ways. When it comes to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, the preschool elementary, I am not convinced, but I'm not privy to what the administration is telling teachers. I'm just talking about this from a child developmental perspective. I am not convinced that you putting a group of, 6-year-olds in a room, 10 of them, and then telling them to social distance or to physically distance makes sense. At some point, they see their friends, hi, ooh. And then now we've got teachers trying to do this. Or we tell them to sit on their mat, like I'm in a kindergarten class, and they sit on the mat, and then they get up and they move. Have you seen a 6-year-old sneeze? They try, but they're just learning. And every now and then they just, right? So I find it fascinating that the schools that were opening up quickest or asking people to come to the most are the ones that are the youngest, compared to the 15-year-old who I could tell, stay over there, don't move, right? But we know they're doing that because kids 12 years old and younger can't stay at home alone. So this is a way to get parents back into the workforce. So with that in mind, I think there's a lot of pressure being put on teachers to not only teach, but to figure out how to manage, how to make that happen. And I don't know if they've had the time to really do that well. That being said, remember that emergency care workers have had their kids in schools since the beginning. So teachers have been doing an excellent job working with that group. The real question is, when we add more people into that, more kids into that system, more people into the building, how is it going to manage? I feel more comfortable going in September, just because I think it gives them more time to really kind of think this out and work it through. But again, talk to your individual districts, your individual schools, and see what they've done. And if you feel comfortable, and I have friends who feel comfortable, go for it. Absolutely. I'm just talking systemically. I personally wish they just would have left things alone and use this month for teachers and administrators to come together and really plan thoughtfully what the September is going to look like, instead of giving a summer break and then they come back 2 weeks before school starts. That's what I would have loved to have seen happen with the teachers. And I don't think you're being an overprotective mom. Please try not to tell certain stories to ourselves, like we have to be perfect, always 100% attentive. I'm being overprotective. I'm being a helicopter person. You love your child. You are taking the best information you can, and you're trying to make the best decision you can. You are not going to be 100% right. It may be right, it may be wrong, but you caring about not only your child, but other children, your family, your community, that doesn't make you overprotective. That makes you, in my opinion, a hell of an awesome parent. I don't know if I was allowed to curse, but I just did. Yeah, that's what somebody just said. It comes down to being as informed as you can. And you can't rely on what other people are going to do. You know, trust what you can. I am sending my kids back for certain activities. We're trying to plan like a grad outside in minimal ways. So we're actively trying to think about how to do that for our grade 12s. I'm excited about that idea and potential. Yeah, just do the best that you can. Give yourself a break.
It's true. I mean, we're talking about a COVID time, but really these parenting concerns are, you know, relevant for life. So
Absolutely.
we do the best we can as parents. We try to do the best for our families and our communities, and, you know, tap into the resources we have available to us. If you're not comfortable as a parent, it is always your prerogative to make a decision that is in the best interest of your family.
And I want to say that if you and your child agree, that's great. But if your child wants to go, but you're still feeling uncomfortable, how do you handle that? And that's just being honest with them, right? And sitting down and saying, I totally understand that. And trying to figure out what is it about the school that they want to go back to. So if it's a friend, they're missing their friends. Okay. So then if you're not going to send them back, it behooves you as the parent then to create the opportunity for them then to connect with their friends in a different way, right? Whether it's they physically see them here and they here meet at a park or, you know, something like that where you can see each other. Find out what their concerns are going to be. And if it's the opposite, you want them to go back, but they don't want to go back, you need to do the same thing too. And then at the end of the day, tell them, I need you to trust me, right? I love you. I wouldn't do anything to put you in harm's way. I need you to trust me. And that's kind of like a life skill. And know that if your kid goes back and you need to prepare them that it's not going to be like it was before. And I think that's the number one thing you want to make sure you do is don't set their expectations so high that they're going to go back and be able to let them know it's going to look different. And that was the reason why my eldest decided not to go back. His teacher made it very clear. This is not going to be social. There's only 12 kids in the room. I'm not going to be teaching you anything. You know, they made it very clear. And he looked at all that and he's like, okay, that doesn't make sense to me. So make sure you're managing their expectations properly, so they know what to expect and what's expected of them when they go back. And that becomes really important as well. And the same thing for the fall.
So Dr. G, in kind of a really brief summary, like my takeaways here include that communication is really key no matter how old your children are.
Yes.
Involving them in the decisions that you're making to find, you know, balance and routine within your household the best way you can. Meal times, you mentioned meal times. Try to make them an important part of connection in the day, a break for you and a break for them. and being consistent with
Yes.
your own kinds of communication, consistent both with boundaries and consequences. Otherwise, then there's just, kind of a disconnect that starts to happen. And that's, again, about life. It's not about.
Exactly. And the physical activity is key. And remember, it doesn't have to be big things. It could be us all sitting on the living room floor stretching together. It could be just going up and down, before dinner. But you need to make sure they're moving. And the devices out of the room. If you use it for an alarm, try to get an old-fashioned alarm. If you have like an Alexa thing, you could do that. Or just plan to knock on their door to wake them up. But you want to get the devices out of the room.
Being a little crazy with toddlers is fun too. I was just thinking how.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about Daniel leading us in fun little Fit Nation breaks when we're having our leader training. It takes sometimes a 5-minute break to crank some music and be a crazy mom and dad dancing away, and your little ones will laugh, and all of a sudden there's no tension and the stress is removed, and that kind of thing can happen at all ages.
I wanted to say, don't forget, kids love helping to plan meals and prepare meals, no matter the age. 2-3-year-olds can help with carrots. An older one, you could give the task to them that this is dinner night, you figure out the dinner. And don't forget old-fashioned letters and cards. Kids today don't know about those things, but how fun would that be, right? To do something like that and independent play. And also be okay that your kids are bored. I just want to throw that one last thing out there, right? And I've made that joke before with my youngest, I'm bored. Well, good. Sometimes you don't need to be occupied all the time. Go sit in the corner. That's how you came to be, because your parents were bored. Like,
that's a good
right?
thought.
Right? So my son was like, oh, Mom, but it's okay.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are nearing the end here. We're over time.
Sorry. June 3rd. I see I made a mistake here on the date.
So it's a week from today. So next Wednesday, which will be June the 3rd. I'm going to toss it out there. We'll talk about it. If we have a lot more, questions, and we would like to have a circle time again around all of these, where we just simply address all of these different concerns. Maybe we can talk about setting a time for that. And perhaps right now, I think it's timely that we have our wonderful resident elder in Gerry to close us off. Any other? You look like you had something more, Dr. G. One more thing.
One more thing. I was just going to say, I actually have it here, if it's possible, for anybody who wants to talk specifically about something that's going on with their family or want to bring that in. Friday at 1:30.
Shall we earmark that one?
We can do that. Yep.
Okay.
1:30 on Friday. For anybody who came into this wanting to have something specifically answered and I didn't tap on it or anything like that, please go ahead and join us Friday at 1:30. If you can't join us at 1:30, send in your question to Susan and we'll address it. And then when you hear the recording back, you'll get your answer. Thank you all again so much.
Thank you, Dr. G. Okay. Gerry. Oh, I think your mic is muted.
Oh, I thought you muted me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I got you, Gerry.
Okay. Yeah, somebody muted me because I didn't mute myself.
Ooh.
Yes, I was thinking about the virus, COVID. And one of the things it's done is brought the families together. Before the old norm, I was listening to Dr. Brokenleg, and he was saying, he done a study. And he was saying, Max, that the mother would talk to the child where there's listening and conversation. I think it was 5 minutes a day. And then the father was 90 seconds. Because we're using the child care, the school. Then he was saying the technology, the artificial intelligence. And he was saying that one of the things it's going to do is how it's going to impact the babies and the ones growing up in this kind of atmosphere is they're going to have a hard time to have a relationship to maintain a relationship, because they're easier texting or watching a screen rather than sitting face to face, looking each other in the eye. So I think this has brought us together. And that might be part of the reason. I try to think of a reason for COVID. You know, like what's been going on? And I think that this is bringing us together. It's like forced, because people would tell us before, no, you can't tell me what to do. You can't tell me how to parent my kids. You know, we wouldn't go out for help. And it started to show, the determinants started to show with addictions and violence with our youngsters. Not all of them. There's lots that are doing excellent. And I think this time now, for us as adults, to take a serious look at myself. You know, like, how much of this are the children watching me doing? And I'm telling them, no, you can't watch too much of that. How much are the parents doing? We need to look at ourselves. It's like we need to look at how we talk, the tonality of our voice. Is there love in the voice? Is there concern? Or is it being critical and demanding? So there's all those things we can look at ourselves and how we are now. Because I can only imagine the impatience that happens now. And before COVID, I raised 2 sets of kids. And there's a lot of times I was at wit's end, impatient, all of that stuff. And I can send them off to soccer, you know. So I'm really put my hands up to all the ones that you're parenting now. You're going to develop new skills. By coming to this session, listening to the doctor, you know, giving you ideas, laying teachings at your feet. And what the elder is going to tell you is to look at yourself, to study yourself and how you communicate. Because that's about listening and speaking. Highest form of respect, I was told by elder, is to listen with everything you got when another human being is talking to you. None of this, you know, to try and shut them up. You know, because I done that as a parent and had 2 sets of kids I parented. You know, and but this is a time we take advantage of it. We look at, okay, now, because they're depending on us. Our children are depending on us as adults to survive this COVID and be strong and be healthy and be patient and to be compassionate at this time more than ever. So I'm glad the session happened today, you know, get us to look at what's going on and some suggestions, most of all, teachings. I was told that not to tell my teenagers what to do for the simple reason that they're adults. And now you have to suggest to them what to do. Because you tell them what to do all the time, they're going to rebel against you. And that happened to me. I myself had such wonderful parents. I don't know how they done it. We were busy all the time. We were weeding gardens, cutting wood, doing all of that stuff without fighting. Well, we'd fight once in a while, but you know, basically we got the job done. You know, and we knew who was in charge. And my mom and dad. We were raised that way, so I think this is what this COVID is going to do for many of us. It's going to bring us to that place of family again. I listen to people say, where they say mom. The whole thing about mom was the children. Those moms need support. You need the aunties. Your best friends can be aunties to your children. They need uncles. Your best friend can be their uncle. I'm uncle to a lot of people, you know. or Papa. The people not calling me Papa. So I just like to do an honor song for all of you that are parenting children in your house now. Ayo, 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 oh. Ayo, 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 oh. Hey, ya, oh, oh, ya, ayo. Hey, ya, oh, hey, ya, oh, hey, ya, oh, hey, ya, oh. Hey, yo, oh, oh, yo, hey, yo. Hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ya, oh. Hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ya, oh. Hey, ya, oh, oh, ya, hey, yo. Hey, ya, oh, 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 oh, yo, hey, yo, hey, ya, oh, 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 oh, ya, hey, yo. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey ya, oh. Hey yo, 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 oh. Hey ya, oh, oh, ya, hey yo. Hey ya, oh, hey ya, oh, hey ya, oh, hey ya, oh, hey yo, oh, oh, yo, hey yo, hey ya, oh, 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 oh, ya. You know, as I was singing, I was picturing your ancestors that walked on the earth thousands and thousands of years. Not one of them gave up. That's why we're here today. They parented during pandemics like the Black Plague, smallpox, Spanish flu, war, and pestilence. And not one of them gave up. And then we lost our way because the responsibility of each adult was to make life good for the ones coming behind us, to make there clean water and food for them that are coming behind us. As humanity, we sort of lost our way because of the pollution and stuff that we allowed to happen. But now we have a good chance to look at that. So I was thanking your ancestors in my mind for you as a gift to humanity. All your ancestors. I was thinking of all those moms and dads in the past. Without electricity, without cell phones, all of those things, you know, and celebrating, dancing, laughing, and crying together, you know. So I think we're going home, myself. We're going back to that way. So remember All you parents, you go like this. I can't see you go like this. Yes. Dr. G, go like this. Okay, now spread your arms out. Compared to your life, that's how much time you're parenting. So you be strong in that time. You be strong in that time. You be patient and you be compassionate with yourself and your children. They're your reason for living. They're insurance of your bloodline going again for another 1,000 years. That long. From birth to 18 usually, compared to your life. You celebrate as much as you can being a daddy and being a mom. It's a privilege to have children. And with that privilege comes tremendous responsibility, ability to respond. You're able to respond. So don't beat yourself up, be gentle with yourself. And you say to yourself, that developing mind doesn't know as much as me about safety, or about good food, or about sleep and rest and recreation. That you know. You do know. I trust in you. So you walk with that attitude, or your children won't doubt you. I never doubted my dad when he says, you go running in the morning before the daybreak comes, and you bathe in the cold water in the lake. I never doubted him, because the way he walked, the tonality of his voice. He's not complaining, he's not whining, he's not angry. It's love in his voice. So, yeah, thank you, Doctor, for being here today, and the rest of you, iSpark family.
Thank
you.
I
I'm looking forward to be with you guys again. Okay, thank you.
I adore you. Oh my gosh.
Thank you for the love in your voice, Gerry.
You know, I can remember holding my babies, breathing on my chest, and their little heat and their sweat on their forehead and their nostril, leaning against my shoulder. I can remember that, and it's gone. Where did it go? Then when they're 16 and 17, they're about leaving. Now I try to get them to come back. When they're 13, I was trying to get them to leave already.
Oh, we could go on, couldn't we?
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for bringing tears to my eyes and laughter to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's life. That's really life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One
Peace
more
and
time.
out.
Okay. Dr. G, one more time. You had one, there was something you...
I am just with the right date.
Oh, good. Oh, good. And we'll let you all know to confirm lunchtime, circle time, or post lunchtime on Friday at 1:30. We'll confirm that. I see Susan's head nodding, so that's perfect.
I'll send out the links, including the new link for Friday. Following this.
Great. Managing worry and anxiety. Okay. We're moving forward, everybody.
Yes,
We are.
we're building a new canoe.
Takes a
Okay,
lot to build a
the
new
baby
canoe.
boomer says peace and out.
See some of you on Friday.
Okay.
Everybody else have a good week.
Thanks for being here, everyone. Bye for now.